Welcome to episode 625 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games.
Well, we're back. Summer sucks. Sorry. Scheduling has been a nightmare, but we're getting them in when we can. So
Yep.
Let's jump right into some feedback because we've got a couple of great pieces of feedback. The first one is from Jose. Oh, I guess I should say these were emailed to us. Entertainment20 at thedigitalmediazone.com is the email address. So the first one is from Jose. Jose's been emailing us for years. Love Jose. He says, congrats on 624 episodes. This is more of a rant than an actual question. But can someone please explain to me why people seem to be so obsessed with having their eyes seared by the brightness of their screen? Maybe not quite that much. He says, over the past year, I've been in the market for a few different devices that happen to be focused around a display, a TV, a laptop, and most recently, a monitor. In all three of these cases, my options naturally included OLED, which I am certainly partial to. As I researched my options, any option that has an OLED display was dinged for not being bright enough, and he put that in quotes, because it didn't have a billion nits of brightness compared to LCD. Last year, I upgraded my laptop to an Asus ZenBook OLED 13, which pretty much all reviews criticized for its dim display. But I've not been in any situation where I said to myself, this just isn't bright enough. Most recently, I was in the market for a new gaming display and was interested in OLED, and no matter what OLED display I was looking into, they were all knocked for not being bright enough. I ended up with the Corsair Xenon 27-inch OLED, which seemed to be a bit dimmer than the rest, despite all of them using the same LG panel, but it had the I/O that I needed. I was worried that it would actually be too dim based on the reviews, but it's perfectly fine. What in the world are people doing with their devices that they need a supernova level of brightness emanating from their display? Am I missing something here? Am I in the minority? Is there a new trend of wearing sunglasses while watching TV and therefore requires a much brighter display? Thanks for letting me ramble. Always great listening to you guys. Take care. Jose, these are great questions, and I know you're mostly rambling, but there are some actual answers to this. Where do I even start? So one, I think the two things that I would jump at is the one being the most important one is brightness matters for HDR. So that matters for your TV. It matters for your gaming monitor, potentially, hopefully, maybe. I don't know that it really matters much for your phone, and maybe not for your laptop. Although with laptop brightness, the reason that the brightness is regularly mentioned in laptop reviews is in case you're going to use it outside. The same reason for phone screen brightness.
Yep.
You're not going to take your computer monitor outside, but you might take your laptop outside. I like to work outside as much as possible. So that's where that can come in. I also think the more negative side of this is just every Best Buy that you walk into, they crank the brightness on every TV because they think it makes it look better. And in that environment, it does look better when they crank the brightness, but it doesn't in your house. But everybody gets used to seeing them like that, which means they think that that's how it's supposed to look. You have any additional thoughts on this, Richard?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned brightness matters for HDR. Well, I mean, HDR almost exists to be able to show the far extremes of dark and bright in contrast to each other on the same monitor in a way that is supposedly more like what our eyes actually see. And I have definitely watched scenes where the sun coming in through a window from outside of a perfectly lit interior scene is searing, is just crazy, insane bright. And I do ask myself sometimes, just like people complain about audio being so mumbly these days, what are the directors thinking? Like, why are they actually making it uncomfortable to watch a scene? What's the point there? Particularly when you contrast it to the types of scenes that I was complaining about a year or two ago in Game of Thrones, where things were so dark that you couldn't see anything. So I, I think a lot of it comes down to preference and whether you really care about the experience that the the director of or the producer of whatever media you're watching intended with things that are portable like laptops and phones. As Josh said, it's more about being able to use it outside. There are many times, even at the greatest brightness that I have available, that my iPad is just not bright enough to use in direct sunlight outside.
Right. Right. There's one other reason that I want to throw out there that guys like Jose and you and I might be thinking this is getting a little overboard here. Like, does it really need to be this bright? And Jose, I say this in love. We're a lot older than some of the than some other people who are
This is
buying these
true. We
devices.
are.
And what that means is not that there's anything wrong with our eyes or anything like that. Just that we grew up using displays that sucked and weren't bright
Yep.
at all.
Yep.
So these are all just way brighter than what we grew up with. Like when you say my new Asus laptop is perfectly fine, yeah, because it's a lot better than the garbage we grew up with in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we have additional feedback, and this came back directly to me through a Slack community I participate in. But this was feedback from a recent episode where we were talking about Plex and Plex music. And this is from Robert. He says that there are alternatives to Plex music. I think Josh mentioned it was the only option for people with local music collections. I've researched this a while ago for one of my clients, and I don't have any direct or hands-on experience, so your mileage may vary, but just passing along the information. There is the Strataspherics app. I'm not even going to spell that. It's Strataspherics with an X at the end,
There'll be
which
links in the show notes.
yeah. He even included links. Robert's very thorough, which looks like a low cost one time fee, but it only works locally on the homeland. The premium solution, especially for audiophile types with lossless music collections, is the Roon ecosystem. I will spell that. That's Roon. He says it's very extensive and includes options for streaming outside your home. You have to run a server app on a computer, similar to Plex. But Roon's claim to fame is an extensive music metadata and organizational capability. I think it's subscription based. He says it overlaps with Sonos and luxury music distribution hardware and software, but typically it's used to manage a local music collection in combination with other hardware systems to handle the physical distribution streaming. But it looks like it could be used by itself for more typical consumer or home use. These are great suggestions. I'm not familiar with either of these. Are you, Josh?
No, I don't think I had ever heard of either of these. So he rightfully calls me out as incorrectly saying that Plex music was the only solution. Maybe I'll try to give myself a pass as saying the only popular solution. Is that fair?
Yeah, that might be fair. I mean, these are not as well known. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that Sonos does still allow you to connect to a local music system. You have to use the Sonos app somewhere to set it up, if I remember correctly, like Sonos app on your desktop. Now, they don't support that anymore. So if you're doing this basically just knowing that it may stop working someday. But if you have Sonos speakers and you don't want to use Plex or one of these systems, Sonos itself will allow you to connect to a music library.
Oh, I had kind of forgotten about that one also.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, great feedback. Thank you, everybody, for writing in. All the rest of our contact information is available in the show notes over at www.thedigitalmediazone.com. And we'll give you some of it again at the end of the show. All right, so let's jump into the news. And we're going to start with more bad news about prices. And this one gets fairly complicated. So this might be one that you want to just, like, if you really care about all the details, you might just want to go click the link because there's even a table of information here. That's how complicated this gets because it's Disney and Disney owns a lot. Disney Plus, Hulu, and like all of the incarnations of Hulu are all going up. The bundle prices are going up. Okay, so Disney Plus without ads, it's going from $10.99 to $13.99 a month. Hulu without ads goes from $14.99 a month. I had forgotten that Hulu was $15 a month. Yikes. To $17.99 a month. The ad supported options for both of those services stay at $7.99 a month. If you want both of those, there's a new plan that they're introducing that is just Disney Plus and Hulu without ads for either of them for $19.99 a month. So like
That's for people like me.
Yeah. For people
I don't
who
care about the sports ball.
Right. If you don't care about ESPN, but you've been doing like the Disney Plus bundle because it was a great deal, here you go. And like this is actually a really nice. Oh man, is it though? Or like does it just feel like it because of how much prices have gone up? But
exactly
$19.99 a month for two services that individually would be $13 and $17.99 respectively. That's a nice discount. So that's an option for you. That new offering becomes available September 6th. Because Disney and Hulu are both increasing in price, that means that the Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus bundle is also increasing. That's going up to $24.99 a month. All of those things start October 12th. The price increases start October 12th. But that's not where it ends because there's lots of other versions of Hulu too. Because there's Hulu with live TV. This is your like cable alternative option. And Hulu with live TV, again, there's two versions of this. One that includes the regular Hulu streaming service with ads, and one that includes the Hulu streaming service without ads. The one with ads is now $76.99 a month. And if you want full Hulu without ads, it's $89.99 a month. $90 a month for Hulu with live TV plus the regular Hulu streaming. Wow. Like this all feels like massive jumps in pricing. Even though individually it's not actually that much, but man, you start looking at $25 a month for the bundle, and maybe it's still worth it. But that makes it, I was going to say it makes it the most expensive streaming service, but it's not really because it's three services bundled together. But oof, feels like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this Disney Plus price, that's, well, first of all, I kind of think of it as having just gone up to $9.99, right? It was $6.99, then it went up to $9.99, but they had the ad version for $6.99, so you felt like you were getting a bargain, right? if you stayed or switched to the ad version. So now it's going from $9.99 to $13.99. I'm using the 99s very intentionally, and I usually don't because I like to gloss over it. They're using the 99s to gloss over the fact that that's a 40% increase in price. 40%.
Okay, so it isn't just me. It doesn't just feel like a large increase. It actually is a large increase.
It doesn't just feel like it. No. No. So I'll tell you, I hope my stock gets a nice bump from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
And, you know, I've regularly been talking about services that I should cancel for the time being and stuff. I have absolutely no reason to be a Disney Plus bundle subscriber at all right now. Like, we are barely watching Disney Plus right now. We've never really used Hulu, and I only really use ESPN Plus for hockey, which won't return until October. So, maybe this is the service that I drop soon. What I didn't see in the article that we're going to link to, though, is if this changes for any of the legacy customers, because the last time they changed, right? No, it did eventually increase for everybody. I was going to say it didn't immediately increase for legacy subscribers, but then I think it eventually did. So this is probably just going to impact everybody. And whatever my monthly bill is probably going to go up to $25 a month. Blah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it will. I keep on thinking at some point we're going to reach the point where the businesses that have gotten into streaming and realize that it's a money-losing endeavor will finally hit the point where it makes sense as a business. But who am I kidding? They're always going to increase the price.
For sure.
So,
yeah. So just cancel them all and get YouTube Premium. I think that's the answer.
What? No.
Well, nothing gets watched at my house more than YouTube Premium. Or not YouTube Premium, just YouTube. We don't have Premium, but maybe. But this new feature that we're going to talk about is not going to be enough to get me to switch. So a new benefit that's been added to YouTube Premium recently, although this actually started in April, is an enhanced 1080p streaming option. In April, it was released on iOS, and now it's available on desktop web browsers and on TV devices. So when I say TV devices, that's your smart TVs, your gaming consoles, your streaming box, your Roku and those sorts of things. What exactly is 1080p premium? Well, it's supposed to be it's definitely a higher bit rate, and it's supposed to look sharper for especially very fine detailed content. I would love to know from someone who actually cares and from someone who is actually a YouTube Premium subscriber, can you tell enough of a difference between regular 1080p and 1080p Premium? And I was going to ask the question, can you tell enough of a difference to justify the cost? But there's no one in the world who's going to be paying for YouTube Premium just to get
for
this 1080p
version. Right.
You're paying for YouTube Premium to remove the ads. That's the main reason you get YouTube Premium. But this all just feels kind of dumb. Like, I don't understand why this is even a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like at some point the tech guys said, there's no reason why we couldn't just offer full 1080p on this. And the business guys said, oh, wait, we could make that a limited feature for people who are paying.
Right. Yeah. And it is different. Like it is using a different video codec, and people have watched, network analysis to compare a 1080 versus a 1080 premium stream. And like it is using more data. But what if these, like, how many of these videos are only available in 1080p versus, oh, you could just watch it in 4K? Sounds great. Like I would rather watch it in 4K than 1080p premium. So it's an option now. If you're a YouTube Premium subscriber, check it out. Let us know. Do you care? Do you notice the difference? And can you actually get your playback device of choice to default to that top option? I don't know. I doubt it. I would love to know. So again, YouTube Premium, the main thing is it removes the ads, and it does cost you $13.99 a month for a single person subscription to get access to this. We're going to stick with YouTube for our next story, and this is about Multiview. This is a feature that was added to YouTube TV back in March for the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness. And it allowed you to watch 4 college basketball games at the same time. They slowly have added more content that is available to be viewed through Multiview, because you don't get to actually control this all that directly. It's not like you can pick a basketball game and a football game and a news broadcast and a sitcom. Like it's very locked down, or maybe I should say curated in terms of what you can watch. Well, they're expanding this, and they're not just expanding the content this time, but also where you can view this, because they're adding support for WNBA games, the Women's Professional Basketball League in the United States. But through YouTube, you don't have to be a YouTube TV subscriber. You do have to subscribe to WNBA Primetime, but then you can just go to that YouTube channel and they will give you, again, a curated list of games that you can watch. But I don't even know how many teams are in the WNBA, like how many games could be going on at any given time. I don't know. I don't know their schedule all that well. But you can watch 4 games of their choice. It'll give you the audio for the game that's in the top left-hand corner. You move the cursor around to different games, and that's the one that gives you that the audio plays from. Sounds great, and it doesn't really cost you any extra. You just have to have that WNBA Primetime channel subscription. So that's cool. It works on TV devices. Again, like we said with the last one, that's basically anything you can connect to a TV. It does not work on mobile, which kind of makes sense. Like I know phone screens are big, but 4 basketball games at once on a phone screen seems ludicrous. It also doesn't work on the web, so it's pretty much just on your giant TV.
I had heard that YouTube TV was going to be expanding Multiview to news and other content like that. I don't think that's out yet, though. I was looking for it on my account, and I certainly couldn't activate it.
I thought some of the content was expanded, but maybe right now it's still just different sports.
Or maybe that feature for the other content, maybe that's limited to their premium subscription where you add 4K and stuff like that, which I don't have. So that's something I might want to look into.
I don't remember that being the thing, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, because remember we talked about wanting to do this for like election night.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when I was watching the different news stations this week talk about the voting in Ohio, I was jumping between different stations trying to find out, who had news. And it would have been nice to be able to do a multi-view thing for that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Well, one more video story, and that's about a new curation app because we need yet another way of curating all of our content, right? Well, this one might be getting it right, might be doing it better than other services that are out there right now. I don't have a verdict on this. I have tried it. This is called Unify. It is not spelled the way you would expect it. It's spelled Y-O-U, get it? Unify. So this is an app for iOS and Android right now. And it aggregates the information in your various streaming services. Works with Netflix, Hulu, Prime, Disney Plus, Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, TV, Apple TV Plus, Discovery Plus, and Showtime. Well, Showtime's now part of Paramount. So all of those services allow you to log in through third parties, to authenticate through these third parties. This does that and pulls the information in for what you've watched and what you want to watch, what's on your lists on those services from the services, and then aggregates that together as a curated experience for you to pick from. So instead of having to train this thing and tell it, oh, I like this versus that, or I want to watch these things, in addition to having play reminder lists or whatever they're called on all of your various different services, this is looking at what you already saved in those services. And it knows what you watched. And it's free. It's a free app. Now, this is coming from MediaMaw. That might sound familiar. That's the company that makes PlayOn and PlayOn Cloud. And this app looks suspiciously like PlayOn Cloud without the DVR part. Because if you recall, on the PlayOn Cloud app, they added the ability to use PlayOn Cloud to navigate through different services and find the content on those services, not necessarily always record it, but just play it if you want to. And when it plays it, it just jumps you to the app, deep links you into the title, and then you watch it in that app. So this works on a tablet. It works on a phone. Unify works the same way. It jumps you into the app. Now, can you put it on your TV? Not yet. They don't yet have a way of just having it cast to your television, but they are working on that. Of course, if the apps themselves have casting capabilities or AirPlay capabilities, then you'd be able to use that to get the content on your TV. They don't yet have TV or streaming device apps, but they're also planning on adding those. So this may end up being, for some people, depending on how you curate the stuff you want to watch, a better way of keeping track of the things you want to see and then having one central place to pick them from.
This idea sounds awesome. This
Yeah.
sounds so good. Like, especially if it can cast, that's even better. But I don't even think it's necessarily a requirement. Like most people, when they're sitting down to watch TV at night, they probably have their phone with them. I know not everybody does, but most people probably do. But they don't necessarily know what they want to watch. And so even if you can't really cast it and all that stuff from the phone, that might not matter that much. At least I can open up this app and say, oh yeah, I wanted to check out Tehran, and go to YouTube or go to Apple TV on my TV or whatever device that I'm watching on, and find it from the watch list that's already in that app. Like it's not going to be hard to find.
Yep.
And even if it was, like, at least you know the thing that you're looking for. Like I think that's the genius thing here. Like we hear about all of these shows that we want to watch, and maybe we add them to our watch list within the various services. But to not have to open up every single app to find, well, all right, I just finished watching Jack Ryan season 3. What do I want to watch next?
Yep.
And maybe it's not something that's in Amazon Prime, but you're not sure. So here you go. Open up Unify, and now you can see all of your watch list in one place.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. So it's your watch list. It's continue watching. It also has recommendations based on, similarities to movies that are in your continue watching or your watch list. And it has some popular stuff and other categories like that. So it's doing what a lot of the other curation sites do. Now, one thing that I will say, love the folks over at Media Mall. They have really cool applications that I still don't understand how they're legal. But one of the things that I think is just a little bit lacking is just a polish to their interface design. So the experience is nice. It's good. It's not beautiful. It's not the slick experience that you see on your Google TV or on your Apple TV or something like that. It's very functional. And as a utility, I think they've nailed the capability on this. Now I hope they spend a little bit of time just making a little bit more polished.
Yeah. It's similar to what Plex has, except that Plex doesn't automatically connect to those things. And I think that's the main difference, because like I can open the Plex app on my phone, search for anything,
Yep,
and add it to one single unified watch list. So if all you care about is the watch list functionality, then maybe the Plex app is actually better, because then it'll just tell you where you can watch it. But
right.
It doesn't actually tie into the services that you already have, the watch list that you've already made there. It doesn't also give you recommendations on other things to watch similar to that. So like there's definitely some things are better in Plex, some things are better in this Unify app. But
Yeah,
this Unify app sounds really interesting. I'm definitely going to have to set this up.
yeah, it's definitely worth trying out. I don't know, I don't know if it's something that I'll stick with, but normally I go to Just Watch to see if something that I'm interested in watching is available or not. This has all the services that I use. So this is already kind of a filter on what would be available to me based on what I'm already paying for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like it.
Very cool. Nice find. All right. Audio news. This is a little bit of a different one, but obviously we like podcasts around here where you're listening to a podcast that we make. So we like them. We don't just make them. I listen to bunches of podcasts, and a lot of you have started subscribing to podcasts on Patreon to help financially support those creators. It's a great thing, but the biggest problem I think with Patreon is that the main experience means now you've got to go to Patreon to get those podcasts instead of getting them in the podcast app that you listen to all of the rest of your podcast in. And Spotify is solving this problem if you're already using Spotify for other podcasts that you listen to by partnering with Patreon. So you open up the Spotify app, you sync your Spotify account to your Patreon account, and in Spotify, you will be able to see the subscriber only, locked episodes in Spotify. But if you subscribe, then you can listen to those versions right there in Spotify. Like, I can't wait for Jen to get home for me to tell her about this, because her favorite podcast she subscribes to, and there's all sorts of like bonus episodes throughout the week. And so she's always listening through. Actually, a lot of times for their main show, she still listens in Spotify and deals with all of the ads and is only using the Patreon app for the bonus content that's not in Spotify.
Yeah, that's me. That's me for nearly everything I support on Patreon. I just can't be bothered getting the Patreon episodes.
Yeah. Now, you don't use Spotify as your
Nope.
podcast player, so this doesn't actually help you much, but it might sway some people to at least give Spotify another chance for their podcast consumption. And if you're worried that, well, if I do this, like Spotify must be getting a cut of the money that I'm trying to send to my independent podcasters, right? No, they're not actually. Spotify doesn't get any extra money out of this. You're not paying any extra money for this functionality, and it doesn't cost the content producer any money to get their stuff on Spotify. So it's kind of win-win for everybody here.
And I guess Spotify's angle is maybe get some more people on Spotify.
Exactly. Yeah. I like this a lot. I think it's awesome. So check it out. Let us know what you think. And I'm going to have Jen check it out and she can give me her review. All right. One quick gaming story for this week. And that is just because gaming news in the summer, there isn't typically much. But one interesting thing that happened recently, and that is that Microsoft has officially started selling their own replacement parts for controllers. So if you've got a controller that you love, but one of the buttons is broken or something like that, or you threw it against the wall in a fit of rage and broke the case. Well, now you can buy replacement parts directly from Microsoft, so you know that they're not like chintzy knockoffs or anything like that. It's the actual parts that Microsoft puts into the ones that, the controllers that you would buy fully assembled. It includes detailed repair manuals, all of that stuff. You can buy the outer shells of the controllers, you can buy the buttons, you can even buy the motherboards with and without attached rumble motors, and the prices are, I think, fairly reasonable for what you're getting here. The replacement shells are about $20. The buttons start at about $22 for a complete set. It's not like $22 for the B button. It's a complete set of buttons. And the motherboards, depending on the type of controller, start at about $34. And this works for both the standard Xbox Series controllers and the Elite Series 2 controller. And that controller alone starts at like $140 is the MSRP. And it's not without problems. Like, things can still break on these things. So being able to spend $40 on a new board, if something goes wrong inside of it, is a whole lot nicer than buying a brand new Elite Series 2 controller for like $170, $190. I can't remember what the cost of the full version is. So if you've got a little bit of handyman skills, if you're able to fix fairly easy things on your own, then check out Microsoft's own replacement part website to get the real deal and fix the controllers on your own. Now, if you are thinking, oh, does this mean that I can buy like the different colored shells, sort of like the Xbox Design Lab? No, you cannot. They only offer the black and the white. So that's it, at least for right now. So check that out if you've got a controller that could use some loving.
I didn't even know that they were repairable.
They are now.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, Richard. It's been a couple weeks. What has been going on inside of your entertainment center?
Lots of good content. So What We Do in the Shadows season 5 is about halfway through right now. The last couple episodes have been absolutely hysterical. I mentioned that we were watching Fubar, the Netflix show with Arnold Schwarzenegger. They're enjoying that. We finished the first season of Ghosts from the UK and are ready to start season 2 on that. Amazon Prime released the second season of Good Omens. approximately 4 years after the first season.
Wow.
It's just crazy how long of a gap there was on this. I don't know why. Maybe they weren't thinking of doing it, and then eventually they decided to do it. But I'm finding it more complicated to follow. Well, maybe not more complicated to follow, but more complicated to understand why. Like, what's the point of what they're showing us in each scene? And it's coming together. I think we have 2 episodes left before we're finished this season. So I'm enjoying it. It's, I don't think, as straightforward fun as the first season was, but I'm enjoying it. Continued to watch some more of the Cabin Chronicle shorts that I talked about as part of the Discovery content that is on Max now. And Strange New Worlds had probably its most unusual episode yet last week. This week is actually the season finale. And no, I'm not talking about the crossover with Lower Decks, which in itself was pretty strange, but they did a musical episode.
What?
And fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer may recall that a very controversial episode of Buffy was a musical.
I had no
And
idea.
it had it was largely well received. And everything that I've heard from most people on this episode was that they enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought it was so funny, so well done. They give an explanation, sort of, for why it's a musical, and even that is entertaining. I was dreading this. I just didn't know what to expect, because this last season has started to feel a little bit too silly. And I like some humor in my Star Trek, but it was getting a little bit too cheeky. But I think they nailed it with this. I think they nailed it. And I made a reference on Mastodon that I don't know how many people will get necessarily, but I said that I think this will probably get some Emmy nominations. And I liken this, I basically said, this is their Atomic Shakespeare. I don't know if anybody watched Moonlighting, but in its prime, they did an episode where the entire episode was basically a retelling of The Taming and the Shrew. And the whole episode was in iambic pentameter. And they got a ton of Emmy nominations and won a few for that episode. I think this is that. It so breaks the mold. And it was very clever. And the writing of the music, of the songs and the lyrics was just brilliant. Like, they're talking about the status of what's going on a console or in the engineering department in song. It's wild. Anyway, thoroughly enjoyed it. I completed my Jack Ryan rewatch. And so now I am in season 4, really liking that, and disappointed that it's going to end, because I think that they've done such a good job with this series, even though it is separate from the books and isn't based on any of the books, really. It nicely parallels what we know about the Jack Ryan timeline, and I think is one of the better additions to that library of content, frankly. Are you still with this one, Josh?
I've not started the most recent season. So this is officially the last season?
Yep.
Aw. That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very disappointing, but I think that they're doing a great job with it. I finished the jury. very concerned about how they were going to end the jury. Remember, the jury is this thing where the premise is that it's a mockumentary about a courtroom, and everybody in the court, except for one juror, was an actor. And obviously, they have to spring it on him at the end. And I was just really worried that that would be terrible. And the way they handled it was just so great. And I know some other people that are watching this, and I hope that you give this a chance. It's an easy watch. It's 4 hours of your time. It's just so funny and so absurd. I highly recommend it. And then finally, for some quick half-hour shows, I got back to watching Courtship of Eddie's Father and The Bob Newhart Show. And that's pretty much it for me. Nothing else new right now. How about you, Josh?
Well, Richard, the last time we talked, you had talked about maybe going to see the Barbie movie.
I did, and I haven't seen it yet, and I'm so frustrated by that.
You should be, because I did go and see it, and it's really good.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, we were basically going to have like a split weekend with our girls. My original plan was to go to a race car race with my oldest daughter. And so Jen made plans to go swimming and stuff with my youngest daughter, but Friday night rolled around and my oldest wasn't feeling great and didn't think going 2 hours away to a race car track would be a great way to spend her Saturday. So we didn't. And instead, she said, how about we go see the Barbie movie? Which kind of surprised me because she already saw it once and rated it a 7. But we went anyway, and I thought it was fantastic. I'm not going to say too much about it because, frankly, I didn't actually know much about the movie going into it. And
Yeah.
I think it was more enjoyable for that. So, like the main message of the movie is one that I wholeheartedly support and have wholeheartedly supported for many, many, many years. There will be many people who don't necessarily agree with it. They're mostly old rich white guys and tough. Maybe they should go watch it and learn a thing or two. It's really good. It's really funny. Maybe the one thing worth pointing out, because it is a movie that's based around a doll that small children play with, is there's definitely a few situations of double entendre that like little kids aren't going to get, but adults are going to find hilarious. And there's also a couple of scenes where like they do mention like the proper words for human anatomy. And if you've not explained that to your children yet, then maybe that's something you want to prepare them for or something. I don't know. Like it's not gross or anything like that, but if
Yeah.
they've never heard some of those words before, maybe you want to prepare them for it ahead of time.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Interesting.
it's good. You're gonna love this movie.
I so want to see this. They played parts of the video for I'm Just Ken on Good Morning America this week. And there's a scene, I love how self-aware it is, right? There's a scene where he goes out to hit the waves, and let's just leave it at that. It's just hysterical.
And you phrased it perfectly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's really funny. Definitely check it out. So in terms of things actually going on like in my house and stuff, I did have some equipment stuff that I needed to deal with. I had being the keyword, like a 24 port TP Link gigabit switch in my office. And it seemed like it had been giving me some issues. And so I had kind of just switched to like not using the switch and just moving the Ethernet cable between devices, which was annoying, but fine. And then we went away on vacation for like 4 days. And literally 3 hours after I left the house, I get a notification from my SmartThings hub that says, your SmartThings hub has been disconnected from the internet. And sure enough, everything in my house was down. I couldn't access my cameras anymore, none of that. And texted my my neighbors. Is internet down in the neighborhood? Nope. Great. It's just my house. I have to work the day after I get home. I hope this isn't that traumatic. Come home. Another switch in my house, the one connected to the modem and router, died. It was just like flashing lights and actually making an audible noise. Your switch not really supposed to make
Not
noise.
supposed to do that.
No, it's not. So I ended up having to replace 2 switches in my house to get everything back up and running. And then also took that as an opportunity to move my main Wi-Fi router because my daughter was telling me that the Wi-Fi signal in her bedroom wasn't great. I'm like, you could have told me this months ago. We've lived in this house for 2 years and this is just now coming across. So fixed all that stuff. Network seems to be running fantastic now. Bought used switches from a listener of the show at a really great price. So thank you, Joe, for helping me out there and getting me the equipment in a hurry. On the gaming side, finally finished the campaign in Diablo 4 last Saturday. The guys that I was playing with, we got together, started playing, and it was like 11:30 or something like that, and we had finished up like the second to last section of the game, and we're like, no, we're not going to bed. We're finishing this. And we didn't go to bed until 2:00 in the morning, but it's done. So it was really great. Definitely still absolutely love Diablo 4 and highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't played it yet. I also, a couple nights ago or last night, I don't know, time is weird, did play another section of The Last of Us. So I'm slowly getting through, nearing the end of that game. Something major happened there that I wasn't quite expecting. Answers some questions for me. And I don't know how I've made it this far in life without really having any actual spoilers to The Last of Us. But I haven't. So it's been good. Hoping to finish that soon. And then lastly, audiobooks and just books in general. Read Masters of Doom, written by David Kushner, narrated, and this is why you should get the audiobook for this, narrated by Wil Wheaton. And Wil Wheaton does a fantastic job narrating this book. Now, what is the book? Masters of Doom is all about, it's essentially the biography of John Carmack and John Romero, the 2 guys that started id Software, the guys that made Doom and Wolfenstein 3D and Quake. And it's a real interesting story. Like, those guys had some interesting lives leading up to this, and then especially once they started working together. And just the story of the video game industry through the 80s and through the 90s. And the book ends, I think, roughly 2001-ish. It's really interesting. It feels long, like it's a 13-hour audiobook, which feels long for a biography of people who are still alive. Like, they've hopefully still got many decades of their lives left, and it's 13 hours already. So check that out, partly because John Romero released his own book just within the last few weeks called Doom Guy, and want to listen to that too. It's not available from the library yet, though, and I don't like paying for books, so I might be waiting. I might not, because I heard that one's also really good. But if you're into the video game industry at all, check out Masters of Doom. It's a really, really interesting book. And Wil Wheaton adds so much to the reading experience. His narration is amazing. I want every book that I read to be narrated by Wil Wheaton from now on. So
yeah, he's a good narrator. I have to speed him up a little bit because he's a little bit, and this comes from one, but he's a little bit of a slow talker. So I tend to read his books at like 1.4, I think. I don't know. You read books faster normally, don't you? I don't normally do that. I normally allow the narrator to stage the pace of things the way they want to.
Hey, they still are.
Sort of.
Like the relative pace doesn't change. The overall pace just changes. It's totally fine. I'm not screwing it up. It's fine. 1.75x, totally fine.
Wow. Well, then you don't need to speed them up.
So anyway, that's it for what's going on in my entertainment center. If you want to get a hold of us, well, I'm on Twitter sometimes at Josh Pollard. We're both on well, actually we are on Instagram, but we're on Mastodon. Richard Gunther and Josh Pollard over on Mastodon. I promise you the live show will return soon-ish. I think I've fixed the video problem, so this might be up on YouTube. So go and check out our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We'd appreciate that. And you'll be able to find all of these links in the show notes over at www.thedigitalmediazone.com. So that's going to do it for episode 625. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.